Welcome to the Never Ending Backlog podcast, your place for short reviews from a gamer with the goal of reducing his backlog. From adventures to sandboxes, join our host as we walk through a collection of unplayed treasures. Now, let's take a look at the featured game of this episode of the Never Ending Backlog.
Hello everybody, welcome to the next episode of Never Ending Backlog. Today we are reviewing a game that I played briefly, but at the time of release, 2011, my laptop was not powerful, nor was it since a gaming computer enough to run the game. Therefore, I am revisiting it to review it, and that game is Sonic Generations Collection. What is it? According to Steam, celebrate 20 years of Sonic in an all-new adventure that delivers a definitive experience to Sonic fans new and old. It is a 3D platformer action game. Though the publisher was SEGA, the developer is actually Devil's Details, which developed the third-person shooter Binary Domain. I am struggling with talking, guys. Current price is $19.99 on Steam. They do have the Sonic the Hedgehog Ultimate Bundle, which includes 19 games for over $100. Then again, it's 19 items. According to Is There Any Deal, the historical low is $1, and you can actually find it on other sites for around $17, saving you $3. So, let's review it. Regarding the install and startup, Sonic Generations installed fine. It was just over 7 gigs and didn't experience any issues. Once that was done, it prompted the choice of either running a config file or playing the game from Steam. I was able to set up my settings with no issue before jumping into my first game. It does boot extremely fast. And there's a lot of games I've been playing on Steam lately that just take forever to get up. Killing Floor 2, start that game up from Steam. It just seems to drag, unfortunately, and that's one of my favorite games. But anyway, within a second or so, you're hearing the nostalgic sounds of Sonic. Graphics, first and foremost, I was able to adjust all graphical settings as soon as I started Sonic Generations from the Steam library config that I mentioned. They allowed me to choose 5760 by 1080, 144 Hz, and upgrade all graphic settings to high. Unfortunately, the game is skewed. Everything is stretched on the videos, menus, etc. This also applies to in-game, unfortunately. They took the 1920 by 1080 resolution and stretched 1920 to 5760 instead. So it's extremely stretched, as you can imagine, which is essentially non-playable. However, I was able to find a fixed exe file found on the WSGF forums. This is a group that provides the widescreen fixer application. I won't use the tool simply because some applications ban users through Steam because of altered game files. Call of Duty in my case. However, I believe the likelihood that Sonic Generations will result in a VAC ban from a simple .exe switch is rare. The brief description of a .exe swap for those that don't know, essentially you download a modded .exe file or executable file. It's what you basically click on when you open up a file on Windows and it loads up the game. And you take that modded .exe file, you go into the root folder of your game or application, and then you swap out the .exe files. I've used these in the past for PC games that I owned. For no CD files, basically, where you swap either the exe or DLL files. And I will put in a disclaimer. I did own the legal physical copies of these games. However, since I'm a collector of these games, I was always terrified about getting them scratched up, placing them in the wrong boxes, etc. Plus, I hated swapping CDs. It was an incredibly painful process. So basically, the no CD swap files, you just place it in your files, and you could play it without the CDs anymore. So, great option. You still have to have the CDs to install the game and everything else, but it was kind of a nice feature. Anyway, after the .exe swap, Sonic and the map were no longer skewed. However, the text kind of was, and the menu options were a little funky. With that, though, another slight problem, and not with the .exe file at all, but the game renders and removes graphics that are coming up in a brief period before they appear on your screen and when you're leaving the screen. So when you're playing on triple monitors, you see the upcoming level components getting rendered on your right monitor, and then you see them flashing out on your left monitor, which is extremely distracting because it's not showing the entire map. You're not seeing the entire ground even. It's like, oh, here's a monster flying in the air, or a robot back here. Or, oh, you just passed this, and now it's just flashing off. It's really cool to see all three monitors when you're sitting still because everything does render then. However, playing the game, I can't recommend it. It is extremely distracting seeing the stuff popping up randomly on the right side and going away on your left side. Essentially, I just swapped the game back to 1920 by 1080 resolution, and it worked wonderfully. In the center monitor, obviously, I didn't stretch it out then. The colors are beautiful, the graphics are crisp, the background details are very well done. It's a traditional Sonic built in a 3D platformer scale. It does have some nice transitions, so when you're turning corners, the loops are more immersive, and ultimately it adds to a modern feeling Sonic without removing too much of the nostalgia. You know, it is a side-scrolling game, but you do, like, you'll see like a turn up ahead, and you'll just turn, and it's an odd way of seeing a platformer. It kind of reminds me of the 3D, the Paper Mario games. Audio, you know, what can you say? It's a traditional Sonic soundtrack. It seems as though it's a mix of classic, you know, Genesis Sonic mixed with something they would have on miscellaneous Sonic cartoons, like the heavy rock kind of features. You know, throughout the game, the sound effects are clean. It is very nostalgia driven. It seems like they have most of their original Sonic the Hedgehog 1, 2, and 3 sound effects, but remastered and add some modern components, which sounds really nice. That's for the songs mostly. Like, the songs are definitely the original songs, but they've definitely twisted them up a little bit, which is nice. The sound effects work. They seem nearly identical to past Sonic games. There are speaking characters, such as the KO, I believe, giving the tutorial. So the speaking is really nice. It walks you through how to play the game. Controls, for some reason, after I changed my video settings in the config manager pre-game, it removed all of my key bindings from my keyboard. So I had to Alt-Tab out of the game first and then go back in the config, reset to defaults, and that seemed to solve the problem. The game, as well as others that, you know, we have reviewed, is constantly making me realize that I need to pick up a controller for some of these. Playing Sonic on a keyboard just feels wrong, especially considering I have one of those SEGA mini consoles, the new Genesis mini consoles they released, sitting right next to me, hooked up to a TV with a 3-button SEGA controller attached. You know, perhaps in the future I'll attempt to connect them to the PC and see if I can get them to work for the SEGA Mega Drive collection on Steam that I am reviewing later this week. The game was definitely made for a controller, as in all of my menu options in the game show A, B, X, etc. And the tutorials in the game tell you to push those buttons, you know, found on the Microsoft Xbox controller. You know, with this, since a controller doesn't traditionally have an escape key, if you need the menu or you want to quit, you have to use the enter button, which basically acts as the start button. If you choose the default settings, I think Sega could have optimized their system to show the buttons that people chose on the keyboard instead of consistently showing the gamepad buttons. You know, I get it that it was made for console, but you ported it to the PC, and with that port, you should port it completely. You know, if you're going to say it's going to be made for the computer, then you better have keyboard options and show those buttons instead of the controllers. For gameplay, there are 2 Sonics in the game, so 2 Sonic characters. One is 3D, think of the New Age, and one is the classic platformer, think of the Genesis, though a little upgrade graphic-wise. You can visit each world, so there are multiple worlds, just like you would for Sonic, as either the Sonics, so kind of a side view or a back view. So you get to see kind of, you know, 3D or side view, which I think is really neat. You know, I think that's a pretty cool feature. Once again, it reminds me of Paper Mario, seeing the game in different viewpoints. The level select reminds me of a Kirby game. So rather than just immediately going to the next level, it's like this whited out world and all these different maps or these worlds would show up, and you have to walk to them to enter into them. So it reminds me of a Kirby game where you walk through the door of all these different worlds. I think it's pretty neat, well done. The view when you're behind Sonic, so think of Sonic Adventure-ish view mode, is a nice twist. It looks clean. It's still very one-directional. You're not really walking backwards toward the camera as much. You know, it's not like a Sonic Adventure game where you could walk in all directions. It's more or less a mobile running game with a few additional choices. One thing I will say I really enjoyed about it is that you can create combos by destroying robots and enemies. So it's got a nice button timing-esque approach to it, which feels extremely clean. It's also certainly modified to make it easier. You know, there's a slight pause after destroying each robot where you can push the attack button again in time to hit the next one in a combo. However, it's similar to a first-person shooter when they have like aim assist. It's not exactly like bam, 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 oh, I missed it, I just died. It's like bam, okay, I have about a second to push it again, okay, and then it just automatically tracks to the next monster. So it makes it a little bit easier for beginners or just people that want to get more out of this. For difficulty, I don't feel the game is extremely difficult. Then again, I don't find most platformers difficult. Ugh. Minus Cupheads and the Castlevania series and Mega Man series. Those three are like challenging in my book. They are repetitive and they require you to learn the levels, learn to when to jump, learn where to find bonuses, etc. However, there are times where you will fall on spikes, lose coins, and get frustrated, as with every Sonic game. Adding the side and back views definitely mixes things up, and that could be challenging, because it does, some levels actually do it mid-game. So you're doing side view, you launch off a ramp, and then it switches behind back view, and it does it multiple times in a level. That gets super confusing sometimes, but it's fun. I've earned 5 achievements within an hour of game time. And here are some pros. The switch from side to back view mid-level is a fun touch that works really well. The combo system is incredibly enjoyable. It keeps Sonic moving really fast. This is a very fast-moving Sonic game. Like, you are just flying across the map. And a well-executed combo is liberating. The audio and graphics look very nice. Unlocking Tails relatively quickly was fun, and I think the voices chosen were appropriate for the characters. And now for the cons. Control on the keyboard is wonky, first and foremost, and only partially supported. No bindings for the tutorials to change the keyboard. And also, Sonic wasn't meant to be played on the keyboard. It's an odd experience. Graphics allow larger resolutions, however the game doesn't actually support it. It's just within one of the choices. Switching between platform and 3D Sonic prompts a quick loading screen in the menu. So when you're jumping between worlds, if you want to do 2D or 3D Sonic, whenever you switch, there's like a 1 second loading screen, which is extremely frustrating. And I understand that it changes the game worlds, but it's still a little frustrating. There's probably a smoother way they could have done without a whole black loading screen with little Sonics running in the corner. Would I recommend this game? Absolutely. I'm certainly biased since I have always been a SEGA gamer over a Nintendo gamer, and with this being their 60th anniversary. However, I think the game offers a fresh take on the Sonic franchise and offers something for those who have played Sonic throughout the years, whether you're starting with Sonic the Hedgehog on the Genesis or one of the newer ones that have been released on the next-gen consoles. There's a little tinkering that is sometimes required with the options and settings. However, I've dealt with far worse and it holds up well, especially considering it's already 9 years old. But overall, it's a great game. I highly recommend it. That was Sonic Generations, and thank you for joining us on this episode of the Never Ending Backlog.